me and you had a discussion about this podcast, or on this podcast about this like a month ago for number one and number two.
I'm looking at what I sent in. Yeah, I'm looking at what I sent in. And yeah, now we do disagree on it. I think it's a 1 and 1A situation. I think you probably are similar to me on that, but maybe not.
The question, and so my number one is Alabama.
These are my 1 and 2 for the entire country as well, not just the SEC.
Yes, me too.
Okay.
My number one is Alabama. Andy's is Georgia. Yep. So we discussed this before, but at what point does Nick Saban become secondary to you? And it seems like that's already happened because Georgia has every characteristic.
Right, Georgia already had the other built-in. Right, Georgia already had the other built-in advantages. Now they are making draft picks just as well as Alabama is, and they're winning national championships. So the fact that they had the other, they're actually in a better recruiting territory than Alabama is, which not by much, but they are, and that Kirby Smart is producing draft picks recently on the same level as Nick Saban and winning at the same level as Nick Saban. And is younger, like that's why I got Georgia number one. But
he literally just signed a worse class than Nick Saban. After everything you just said, it still didn't sign a better class than Alabama.
He literally won the national title the last 2 years.
But we're talking about recruiting potential.
Yeah, they're this. They were worse class. Were they number 2?
Yeah, they were number 2.
Okay. Do you think some of those players may eventually play Alabama players for the national title and possibly beat them?
If your answer to that is that the rankings are subjective, okay, when they're both that good. Alabama just signed 15 top 100 players this year after losing and not winning the national championship for 3. It's potential moving forward.
You and I have both said that we think Nick Saban's got at least another national title in him. But I think Kirby Smart's got maybe 3 or 4 more national titles in him. So,
maybe 8. I don't know how long he's going to go there. I'm just saying, if I had to pick for the next few years, who I would pick to lead my program, and it'd be Nick Saban still.
We're splitting hairs here.
We're splitting. Okay, number 3 is, I think, unquestionably LSU. They are one of the few teams in the country that has the unique advantage of being the only Power 5 program in such a talented state. And they're also very close. It is the Ohio State style of recruiting itself. Like there are certain people who, it doesn't matter who the coach is, like they're going to LSU, and that's where they want to go. So yeah, I have LSU. Would you have LSU
in the SEC as well?
Catherine's over here having a meltdown. I think that it's easier to win at LSU than it is at Texas.
Oh, it's much easier to win at LSU than it is at Texas.
Which is proven by the fact that every coach that's been there in the last 20 years has won a national title.
Ed Orgeron and Les Miles won national titles alongside Nick Saban.
But I was like, Texas is in Texas. And like, I understand.
Texas is a hard place to win.
But also I don't think that the players in the state of Texas, and some do, but not all of them, want to play at Texas as much as Louisiana prospects want to play for LSU, right? Like, I think the draw.
You're exactly right, Ari. Or they might want to play for A&M, or they might want to play for Oklahoma. Like, it's the same in Florida. Florida's the same way.
Which is the perfect segue to number 4 and 5, because I had a really hard time with this. Mm-hmm. My number 4 is Texas, right behind LSU. And as we are buying stock in the future, would you put Texas or A&M first? Because they're my 4 and 5 on my list.
We're not even close to them for me yet. I got Oklahoma here.
Oklahoma's my 6th.
Because Oklahoma's always good. There's always money in the banana stand. Oklahoma is always good. And now they have perhaps the best recruiting head coach
to the recruiting results as the other two. They don't even come close. Well, this past year they did, but like,
you know what they usually do? They win better than them.
I know, but we're not ranking programs based on who wins the most. We're ranking them based on recruiting problems.
No, that's part of it. Now they've got a guy who knows how to recruit, and they always win, except for last year.
Yeah, so they do always win, but I do think that like if I was putting money down on who will sign the best recruiting classes in the next,
you said the coach matters. Do you want Do you want Brent Venables, Steve Sarkisian, or Jimbo Fisher here? Who do you want? I actually have somebody else ahead of
class.
I actually have somebody else ahead of A&M in Texas because I think that person's a better recruiter.
They just got Arch Manning and signed the number 3 class in the country, I think. So, like, I don't know that I don't think that Brent Venables is levitating above Steve Sarkisian as a recruiter. Like, he did a great job at Oklahoma, no question about it. And I think that's why they're number 6 on my list. But from recruiting results standpoint, it hasn't come close to what A&M and Texas have done in the recent past. Like, Texas A&M is 2 years removed from signing the greatest class of all time.
Coach matters. You said
it does.
Well, and okay, yeah, and coach matters now. Texas A&M did sign the greatest recruiting class of all time, did jack squat with it, and had a terrible year. And now they're talking about
freshmen
maybe firing Jimbo Fisher, even though it would cost the GDP of a small island nation to do it. So, listen.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, like,
you were the one who decided to put coaching in here. This is why I actually have.
You're driving me nuts.
Auburn ahead. This is why I have Auburn ahead of A&M in Texas, because Hugh Freeze is a better recruiter than these guys, at least in terms of finding guys who can win in the SEC. We already know he can do that, and he's at a place now where you've shown you can get. And he's at a place now where he's shown you can get those guys to that place.
Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Texas, Texas A&M, Oklahoma are my top 6. Number 7 is Auburn for that very reason. But I don't know that Brent Venables has done anything yet outside of signing a really good class that the 2 that I ranked ahead of them haven't.
He signed your favorite quarterback, right? You're like Sark signed Arch Manning. Well,
I know, but cumulatively speaking, he hasn't done what the other 2 have. That's a fact. It's not a debate. So he's only been a head coach for 1 year, and they were terrible.
I am putting him where I'm putting him.
Okay. I like disagreeing with you.
I may be wrong.
Good. It's like
I may be wrong. I have Oklahoma, then Auburn, then A&M, then Texas, right next to each other. They're actually right next to each other in the national ranking too.
So they got you to number 8 then?
I would have had A&M a lot higher after Jimbo signed that class before the last season. After last year, I don't have a ton of faith that it's going to work out. So I don't know where you go with that.
I might be overdoing Auburn here at number 7 because Hugh Freeze did do really well in a limited amount of time, and I think Auburn.
Oh, I have Auburn number 6 or number.
But I had a really hard
4.
time because
5. Yeah,
the next 2 on my list, I didn't know who to rank ahead of who. And I think it's possible that Auburn should be behind these 2, and I think you could probably guess who the 2 are.
Tennessee's one of them. I'm assuming Florida's the other one.
Tennessee and Florida are the 2. Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
This is really hard.
I don't feel particularly passionate about either one, so you tell me where you have them.
Well, I have them. They're next for me as well. I think I may be underestimating Josh Heupel. I may need to pop him up a little bit.
But you could also take NIL into account too. So, like for me, I put Tennessee ahead of Florida because of the absolute disaster that happened with Jaden Rashada. And I think that Josh Heupel,
I did my rankings before I did that. Maybe I need to flip them because the reason I had Florida up there is we've seen it's possible to get elite national championship type classes at Florida. It's been a while.
In 2010, they had the best class of all time for like 10 years.
That was Urban Meyer. And Urban Meyer had the 2006 class that had Percy Harvin and Tim Tebow and Brandon Spikes, but that was Urban Meyer. That's the thing. That's the problem. So,
yeah.
Florida has had that kind of success, but with 2 Hall of Fame head coaches and really only one in this era of recruiting. Steve Spurrier's success came in a different era of recruiting. So,
and the hard thing, too, with Florida is that, unfortunately, it's been, almost 20 years since they won their last national championship? And
it has been 15.
As the 15s, 2006 to 23 is...
2008. They won in 2008.
Oh, 08, yeah. 15 years. But it's getting harder and harder to differentiate any of the big 3 in Florida. Like, I just don't know. Like, if you had to buy stock in one of the 3 programs... Like, if you had to buy stock in one of the 3 Florida programs for the next 10 years, who would you pick and why?
I have no idea. Honestly.
So, like, how do you recruit the Sunshine State when you don't know the answer to that question?
if we did this exercise in 1999, all three of them would have been the top 5. Like,
I think I remember when SI used to do. Didn't SI used to do job rankings? Am I making that up?
Yeah, Stuart Mandel did them. Yeah.
Wasn't Florida in the top 5 in like 2010?
Always. Yeah. It was a fixture there.
Like Texas was always number 1 and Florida was like in the top 5.
But I think we've always figured out that Texas and Florida, Texas, Florida, and USC, I think are fairly similar in that they seem to have everything that you want, but it is very difficult to win, and you may just need to be a Hall of Fame coach to do it.
Right.
Or so, not and win, I guess the answer, win to the satisfaction of everyone.
So I guess the answer to the question of this is like, if you were any of the athletic directors of any of those schools, USC did the one thing that no one else did, which was go get a proven coach that would be a hot commodity and swing for the fences. Like, if Billy Napier's time runs out there in the next few years,
Florida needs to
you just swing as hard as you can and pay as much money as humanly possible to get the most proven name possible back at that school.
The last time Florida got the number 1 guy on the market, they won 2 national titles within 4 years.
And now that all the coaching carousel the last 2 years ago was over, I don't even know who that is anymore.
Right. There's not an obvious one. And look, there weren't obvious ones 2 years ago when Lincoln Riley went to USC and Brian Kelly went to LSU. We didn't think they were movable, and then they moved.
But if you could hand select one coach from any team in America, regardless of whether or not it's rational or reasonable, to be Florida's head coach to win a national championship, I guess you'd pick Nick Saban. That's never going to happen. So take Saban and Smart out of it. Who else?
You're not going to get Saban. You're not going to get Smart. Do you go after James Franklin and think he can get a little bit better caliber of player than he's been able to get at Penn State? Like, I don't know. That's the question.
Yeah. So that's the thing. It's just like everybody's kind of in this, and like I think Miami did a really good job too getting Mario Cristobal, right? Like they did.
He's got to make it show on the field too.
Yeah. So there's no doubt about it candidate here. So it's going to be interesting to see who can survive here. But I thought Tennessee deserved the nod ahead.
Tennessee's I think you're probably right. Yeah, I probably got that wrong. So I think you should have Tennessee ahead of Florida right now. If for nothing else, then they've differentiated themselves. They found it with that offense, with Heupel. Like, it feels like they've found a way to differentiate themselves.
I just try to envision that I'm taking money out of the ATM and putting it into them. Like, if I had to put money into these programs, who would I bet on? Who would I invest in?
Yeah.
And I would invest in Tennessee moving forward from this point more than Florida because of what's going on at both places.
I think the next one, who you have next, is a really interesting one.
Aside from the last few, this next 4 is an interesting chunk.
Yes.
I picked South Carolina here at number 10.
I did too.
I really like what I've seen out of Shane Beamer, and not just because he was on our podcast last week, but they are recruiting at a higher level than they've recruited since back in the I can't speak today.
Jadeveon Clowney, Alshon Jeffrey, Stephon.
Alshon, those guys are all from South Carolina, and they're recruiting well in South Carolina right now.
Well, and that's why I probably gave them the nod over Kentucky and Ole Miss and Arkansas, because we've seen them recruit at that level. Even though it was a brief period, we saw them recruit at that level and then turn it into results. Like that
immediately.
For a program with that history, that's unusual. So it shows you put elite players there, you can do it. And so those classes, the Marcus Lattimore, Jadeveon Clowney, Stephon Gilmore, all those guys, I mean, they had some really good. Melvin Ingram was playing there. They produced 3 11-win seasons in a row. They won before that streak started. They did win the SEC East in 2010. So heights South Carolina had never reached before. So this says if Shane Beamer recruits the way he has been and maybe brings it up a tick a little bit and can start getting some of those guys that had been signing with Clemson, because the difference is Dabo hadn't established himself yet And that's why South Carolina could do that back then. This is a harder deal now.
If Jadeveon Clowney were a recruit in the 2019 class, where does he go?
He'd have gone to Clemson. He'd have gone to Clemson.
If he were a recruit in the 2023 class, or let's say 2024, this class, it's not quite as open shut, right?
There would have been a fight, yeah.
He still might go to Clemson, probably would go to Clemson, but there is a thought that, hey, South Carolina could have a chance. And I think that distinction that didn't exist 2 years ago, existing now, puts them at number 10.
Yeah. So who'd you have right after that? I had a really hard time with the next bunch, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Arkansas, Mississippi State.
I put Kentucky number 11 because they have a plan and their plan works for who they are.
That's exactly what I did. And Ole Miss has a plan. I have Ole Miss behind Kentucky. Ole Miss has a plan, but it's not necessarily as proven just because you're going into the portal every year, and that's going to be difficult. Mississippi State has a kind of a blueprint and has always had a blueprint, but it's not really ever produced great results. They got up to number 1 in 2014. They had a really good year that year, but until we can see them do it consistently, like they'll produce NFL players for sure. Like even the first Joe Moorhead team, I think had 2 or 3 first-round draft picks on the defense. So like it's possible. And obviously Dan Mullen recruited that bunch. But it's I
think you and I are going to have,
it feels like they're at a little lower level.
We're going to have the same, I think, ending to it. 11 Kentucky, 12 Ole Miss, 13 Arkansas, 14 Mizzou, 15 Mississippi State, 16 Vanderbilt.
I had Mizzou behind Mississippi State,
and Mississippi State flipped. I could flip.
Yeah, I had Mizzou behind Mississippi State. I think the Mississippi JUCOs and the formula Mississippi State has, they can more consistently grab talent.
St. Louis is a sneaky talented area, but Mizzou hasn't shown any ability to own that city, so I don't think it should matter.
Right. I mean, that's the problem is you have a lot of the Big Ten schools coming in. Oklahoma's going to try to go in there. It's a tougher place to recruit. Like if you're a good coach at Mississippi State with a lot of context in your state, somebody from the JUCOs is going to help you get somebody that you never otherwise have a chance to get.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
cool. That was fun.
That's why I'm in there.